Here we are, Tuesday, May 22nd, Sports Bit, Betty and Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, SBRpicks.com. I'm at Real Sports Bit. He's at Teddy_Covers. Rockets season on the line. We'll talk about Game 4 coming up and the adjusted series price in a bit. And we'll get to Week 1. College football lines released yesterday here in Vegas at the South Point. Some good matchups. We start a week early again in late August, and we got some major movement to talk about and what some wise guys are betting. Play the day before we get out of here, and we'll turn the shot clock on involving college football as well. Another conference final, another comfortable win. Brown lays it in with 7 seconds left. That's the only reason it landed 9 instead of a double-digit win. Cavs cover. Play of the day winner, it goes over 111-102. Series tied at 2. And Teddy, the Celtics, just like the Rockets, the Celtics missed 15 layups or dunks. Cut it to 9 a few times. Couldn't get the big basket to get over the edge and make a big run. The big thing came down to the first quarter when they trailed by 16.
Yeah, I had a big bet on Boston last night, and you talk about those dunks and layups making you crazy. 15 of them the Celtics missed. Bunnies around the basket. They rallied. They cut it to 7 in the fourth. I'm like, here we go. The Celtics have done this before, but let's give Cleveland credit. From 2-point range, the Cavs, 57% from the floor. They were plus 10 on the boards as well. And even though LeBron was the only guy for Cleveland to really get going offensively in game number 4, Celtics didn't play great. I mean, certainly not on the offensive end. They got out-rebounded. They did force turnovers, but bottom line, here's the quote from Brad Stevens. Quote, "It's best 2 out of 3 to go to the NBA Finals. Doesn't get better than that." Ultimately, everybody that didn't think this was going to be tough, I mean, everything is tough. In this deal, it's a blast to have grit in your teeth, get up off the mat, and go after it again. That's part of it. I like that mentality for Boston, but, I mean, the first half blowout, the second half Celtics rally, we did see a faster pace last night than we'd seen in any previous game in the series, hence the game going over the total. But, of course, lots of free throw attempts helped that get over the total as well. It wasn't one of those situations where the refs swallowed their whistles.
I thought they were terrible. Foster and I can't remember the other guy's name, who's had that run-in with Rondo. 59 attempted combined free throw attempts. And how do you guard LeBron when they're calling the ticky-tack stuff? Morris had 5, Brown had 5. Love was in foul trouble as well. There was a sequence there in the third quarter where they were calling a foul every time down the floor on the Celtics. And for both teams, I thought the Celtics were rushing shots again, especially Rozier taking some quick shots as well. Brown shot 23 times. They are 9-0 straight up in ATS at home. They're 1-6 on the road. In that one win, they were down 4 with a minute left and beat the Sixers. Completely different team, home road.
So far in the postseason, it certainly has. But again, this stuff starts to get baked into the numbers as we move forward into Game 5 of this series here, and it's pretty clear we're seeing at least a little bit of market respect for Boston. Some books, the Celtics +1, some books, the Celtics -1. Be interesting to see where that line ends up grading out. We'll preview that game right here on SportsBit tomorrow.
All right, it was a short card. Big win, gutsy win for the Capitals. They shut out the Lightning 3-0. They force a Game 7 Wednesday on the road against Tampa. They've struggled in Game 7s. Tampa's been terrific. It ends that streak, too. Tampa had been 7-0 all time in playoff games in D.C. Hard-hitting, fantastic game. And they force a Game 7 winner, gets the Golden Knights. I can't believe I'm saying that. And the Stanley Cup Finals on Memorial Day. Bad for the books. Yankees 190 up to 220. They win 10-5, third straight game with at least 5 home runs, I think it was. First time in franchise history. And the Orioles under 9.5 down to 9. 3-2 final there. Twins under from 9 down to 8.5. And Padres over from 7.5 to 8. All winners for the players.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for good ways to make money betting against line moves in baseball or football or basketball, I'll tell you what. The totals moves tend to be fairly sharp. And as we saw last night, Orioles under gets steamed, Twins under gets steamed, Padres over gets steamed, all right side winners. The big steam moves for MLB totals are moves that I tend to not to try to fade. And of course, the Yankees, as you mentioned, taking money again and winning again. The Bronx Bombers becoming a real problem for bookmakers, much the way the Dodgers were for extended stretches last year. Let's not forget, You can turn a winner into a loser with a point spread when the point spread gets high enough. You can never turn a winner into a loser when it comes to money line wagers. As long as the Yankees continue to win, the bookmaker's going to have a hard time with this team because they have clearly gotten a lot of support from wise guys and from public bettors, support that's not going anywhere. The Yankees have a big bandwagon here as we approach Memorial Day.
Yep, and the NFL can kiss it. Integrity of the game business, and they vote 31-1 to give us an NFL team with the Raiders. So it's a bunch of bunk. And for years fighting and challenging New Jersey, I'm glad New Jersey and Monmouth Park suing the major four major sports leagues. What's Goodell up to now that he finally came out with a statement here after what happened last week with the Supreme Court?
Sure, and this is all good stuff. Okay, the fact that we're talking about gambling with the NFL commissioner, this is a good thing. All right. Now, this expected the legislation that everyone's trying to get to work out good is another question entirely. But right now, we're on the same side of the NFL. Here's from the statement. We are asking Congress to enact uniform standards for states that choose to legalize sports betting that include, at a minimum, 4 core principles. So let's talk about the 4 core principles. 1, there must be substantial consumer protections. Of course, we have that here in Las Vegas. It's not anything difficult. That's not controversial in the slightest. Sports leagues, number 2, sports leagues can protect our content and intellectual property from those who attempt to steal or misuse it. Again, that sounds fairly reasonable. What that means in actual law is another question entirely. 3, fans will have access to official, reliable league data. No problem with that. And 4, law enforcement will have the resources, monitoring, and enforcement tools necessary to protect our fans and to penalize bad actors here at home and abroad. All of that, Pauly, makes sense, sounds reasonable. Of course, it's the NFL, so we know there's got to be some dirty stuff behind the scenes. But bottom line, I'm agreeing with Goodell. I can't ever remember that happening before.
All right. Well, ridiculous. Good for you there. We'll see what happens here with a couple states ready to go as well. Maybe as soon as early June coming up. All right, Game 4, Rockets and Warriors. Thanks to Intertop Sportsbook, 22 years online. Sign up, deposit, and win. Golden State is 8.5, 224 the total. Big adjustment from the Game 3 total. Iguodala doubtful now. How about that news? That was under the radar as he collided and hit knees with Harden, and it swelled up after the game. Adjusted series price. Warriors are minus 1,000. Take back plus 650 on the Rockets. Game 1, Houston was favored. 225.5 the total. It went Warriors and under. Rockets in a blowout, Warriors and over in Game 2. And then the bloodbath, Golden State and under in Game 3. A lot of ways to look at this. Number 1, Houston series on the line. Their season is on the line, rather. Golden State's won 16 in a row at home in the playoffs. You just got humiliated and embarrassed and lost by 40 points on national TV, and your coach called you out and called you soft.
Yeah. And the margin of defeat, the biggest ever in the history of the NBA for a team that won 65 or more games in the regular season. So, yeah, in theory, it's supposed to be a Rocket spot. And we've seen zigzag. We saw zigzag in the regular season between these teams. Neither squad has been able to win 2 in a row against the others all year long. But, you have to like the mentality of Golden State. Steve Kerr talking about Game 4. It starts 0-0. Doesn't matter if we won the previous game by 1 or by 41. Doesn't matter what happened on Sunday. We have to be ready for a great team that's going to come out like they did in Game 2, attacking, hair on fire, taking the force to us. And we have to be ready for that. Here's the question. In my mind, it's the only question for this game. Does Houston actually come out attacking like their hair's on fire and taking the force to Golden State? Because if the Rockets play that tepid basketball that we saw in the second half against Golden State, this series is over. If the Rockets come out and fight, it's going to be a battle. But if we see that lethargic, we'll try it again next time, that's not going to work for Houston tonight. Houston has to bring their A game or they're going to go home in 5.
Curry's back. He missed 17 of his first 23-point attempts in the first 10 quarters. And then in the third quarter, he went 4 of 5 and also was on fire, scoring 35 points in Game 3. You don't stand a chance again. This might be the best team in NBA history with the talent they have. And if Curry and Durant get it going, no one has an answer. With the Rockets, couple things. Maybe they already think they had a successful season with 65 wins and the 1 seed and Paul finally gets to the conference finals. He appears to be nicked up as well the last few games. Also, let's see what happens with the loss of Iguodala. But Steve Kerr said this, and he's right. Another reason to like the Rockets. Remember, the Warriors just have to win the game. That's their goal. We're getting 8.5. They got to win by 9. And it seems every time they play a good game in the playoffs, it's sloppy city, turnover city. And that happened after the Game 1 win when they were horrendous and careless with the ball in Game 2. Kerr said that to the reporter. Myers, the GM, also said that about for whatever reason, after we have a good game, we play like garbage.
Sure. I mean, Mike D'Antoni said all the pressure here is on Golden State, which I thought was smart because, of course, if the Rockets win, the home court advantage goes right back to Houston because its series is tied as 2-2, and the Rockets will have 2 of the last 3 at home. Steve Kerr's reaction to that was great, saying there's pressure on the Warriors. I hope so. We're much better when the pressure's on. He's right. We're at home, so if they win, they have home court advantage. So, yeah, pressure's on us. It's kind of on them, too. Kerr taking it down a notch. But when you talk about what happened in Game 2 versus Game 3, I mean, there's 3 guys, for Houston who went nuts. Gordon, Tucker, and Ariza, 23 of 33 in Game 2, 68 points, more than half the team's points. And then in Game 3, they combined 8 of 24 shooting and 23 points. That's a 45-point difference in a 41-point loss. Gordon, Tucker, and Ariza, Houston's role players, they too, in my mind, absolutely key for tonight. That trio has to play much, much better if the Rockets are going to compete.
Whole key to the series. We said it before it started. The whole key is the supporting cast and those 3 guys as well. They were great in Game 2 and they got the win. Also, you're playing the Warriors, so it's a different ball game. Houston has been awesome off a loss in the playoffs. Got beat Game 3 at Minnesota, came out awesome in Game 4, had the 50-point third quarter, lost Game 2 at home to the Jazz, came out, we're up 40 on the road in Game 3 at Utah, and then they lost Game 1 and they were up 30 against the Warriors in Game 2. So we'll see how they respond tonight, Game 4, and you can probably know what we're going to do with the play of the day coming up. This reminds me of old school at the South Point. Thursday will be games of the year in college football. Sunday, they put their neck out there. They stick their neck out there. They put up win totals on every team in college football. Yesterday was week 1 college football lines. Have the sheet here. We start Saturday, August 25th, which is great as we go a week early again, just like last year. Remember, they had that Sydney, was that a couple years ago? That was a couple years ago with the Sydney-Australia game. But we started early last week in college football. It's a good card, highlighted by Miami and LSU, Sunday, September 2nd. Miami is 3 in Arlington. No movement there. Labor Day, Florida State was picked against Virginia Tech at home. That is up to 4. And a lot of movement on these Teddies. It's the Sharps who fly in from all over the country to take a pop here with $1,000 bets. You can make 3 bets and then back of the line.
Yeah, this is something that, if you're a serious bettor, you should come in for one of these. This is a fun event in Las Vegas when you have these opening lines. And we've seen them at the Golden Nugget where they put out their games of the year. We've seen them at the South Point, obviously, when they're putting out their numbers, the Westgate. There's like different wise guy parties around town over the course of the summer. You mentioned the rules. The rules are the betting is only open at the windows for the first hour. $1,000 limits, 3 bet max, and you got to go to the back of the line. After that first hour, then you can bet on your phone apps. You can bet at the other casinos in town that use the South Point lines, like the Rampart and all of that. So that's how the process worked. I thought about trying to graphic up the whole thing and put all the games up there. It was just too much for too small a screen. I'm sure if you guys are looking for the lines, they're very easy to find all over the place, in fact, because South Point first to market. So you make sure that you send out a bunch of press releases, but you can find those lines in many mainstream sources. But you talk about the early moves, and again, very, very early. But worth noting, there was a good handful of substantial moves yesterday, starting with Notre Dame, Michigan.
This is the marquee game on NBC. They wanted initially, one guy wanted to make this 10 with the game at Notre Dame. They landed on 7, and then the bettors disagreed and bet it down to, I think it was, at one point went to Michigan, a 1-point favorite. Notre Dame settled eventually as a 1-point favorite. So a big move on Michigan as they think finally Harbaugh has his quarterback with Patterson. So they felt it was too much with Notre Dame as they took the 7 and drive it all the way down to pick and even Michigan a favorite as that was hit hard in that one. Oklahoma was bet up from 17-21 against Florida Atlantic and Lane Kiffin. Washington and Auburn, another good game from Atlanta. That went from pick to Auburn 3. That's a terrific game, and they bet West Virginia heavy. West Virginia opened 7 against Tennessee. That game's in Charlotte, and I think that got up to 12, and then there was some buyback as a respected player came in and took Tennessee and drove that back down. Alabama, Louisville, Alabama from 20 up to 20 and a half. And how about this is interesting because we love Scott Frost. They bet against Central Florida, and they bet on Nebraska. Nebraska from 18-21 against Akron, and Connecticut plus 28 down to plus 23 against Central Florida.
Sure. And when you talk about how this process goes, all right, what the bettors coming into the South Point have, they've got their list of all the week 1 games and their lines right there on the list. Boom, 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 boom. As the numbers come up, bettors are looking for big differences. The biggest differences are the ones that are going to get slapped first, and the ones around key numbers are going to be the ones that get slapped around first. And that's why that Michigan-Notre Dame move is so big to talk about. I mean, that, started at 7, plowed through 7, plowed through 6, 4, 3, all the key numbers just gone. South Point for every bet, for every limit bet, they'll move a half point, a point. Sometimes they'll move 2 off a single wager, depending on who's making it and how much liability they have. But the lines do bounce around significantly. But when you talk about a 6-point line move from -7 down to -1, that's very different from a 6-point line move with a 35-point favorite bet down to 29 or something like that. It's a significant move worth talking about. And you talked about Purdue. Purdue's the hot team last year coming out of the gate. And certainly we're seeing some of that early. Purdue against Arizona in the opener. Arizona opened as a dog. Now Purdue is the chalk. And you talked about some of the other bigger moves around from the opening thing with Florida State. And of course, we will see so much more over the course of the next week with the win totals for every team and the games of the year. Chris Andrews, here's a quote I think is worth talking about here. Quote, "Whatever I put up, I think is the right number. But I certainly respect the guys playing us. These are all pretty smart guys betting us, and I like to see what the sharp guys think. It helps me with my power ratings and with whatever adjustments we make." So it's not like this is a process where Southgate's put in the numbers and these are their power ratings are locked in. They're going to make adjustments off of their power ratings based on the action they're seeing from some of the best bettors in the world.
It's a gutsy move, first to market here. And, the Golden Nugget did it for years too. And sometimes they took it in the throat and had some big losses.
Sure did.
As they were, one year they were wrong on Northwestern. And then there's really big Sunday with the games of the year. So get out there 10 in the morning on Thursday if you want. Win totals. Games of the year Thursday at 10 in the morning. I like what Colorado
One more
State's
real
doing
quick.
with
I got to.
Yeah.
Sorry, Paul. I don't want to cut you. One more. I got to cut in here because we put a picture and a graphic with it. That's Alabama taking a bunch of money against Louisville. Crimson Tide opened 20 against the Cardinals, quickly up to 25. Nick Saban is a guy who tends to take week 1 money. We definitely saw some of that right from the get-go.
I like what Colorado State's doing with their program. Remember, they opened the early game last year and ran out Oregon State. They are 16 against Hawaii Saturday, August 25th. They also like it because they can play a game before their showdown with their rival Colorado, which didn't go well last year, although we didn't know Oregon State was going to be so bad. Those are some of the early games. How about Kevin Sumlin taking over at Arizona? He gets to coach Khalil Tate now. They are 14 against BYU, and I think UNLV's worth a look. Getting 4 touchdowns against USC, scheduling spot. Remember, USC struggled against Western Michigan last year at home to start the year. After this game, they go to Stanford, and then they go to Texas. So they're going to win the game no matter what, but probably looking past UNLV, and maybe they can lose maybe by 21 or 24 in that game as well. And Chip Kelly starts off with UCLA. They are 20-point favorites against Cincinnati in that one. And so those are some of your marquee games coming up the first week of college football. And those great games Sunday night and Monday night with Miami. I'm surprised Miami's 3 on a neutral against LSU, considering they had issues away from home last year, although it was a great story and Miami's back. But they were a different team away from home.
Sure. And again, this is very, very, very early in the process. But it's interesting to note where the market has these teams priced initially and where the early money is going. Not a bad thing to track if you're talking about how to get the best of the number for week 2, week 3, week 4 in college football, where the money comes early on one team, might come early on them again the next time, assuming they win and cover off that initial wager.
All right, we talked about Bama, 25-point favorite now is shot clock time. Turn it on. Bama dynasty boring. Well, they might have upgraded at the quarterback position if you watch the national title game, but I'm sick and tired of this. I'm tired of Alabama. I'm tired of the SEC. They get the benefit of the doubt even when they lose games. Alabama didn't even win their division, yet they somehow got in the playoff. And also, Saban took a shot at Central Florida saying we're the national champs after they go 13-0. You didn't even win your division. Why did you get to play? And these guys go 13-0 and thump Auburn in the Peach Bowl. They don't get invited. The whole system's ridiculous. Why don't we just go to 8 teams? But in any event, with the recruiting rankings and preseason magazines, they're always going to be number 1. And even when they lose, they're hardly going to drop in the polls. Everyone loves Alabama. They have all the talent in the world. And I think looking at their schedule again, they'll find a way to win 11 games.
Yeah, I'm not a dynasty fan. I'm just not, And when you look at the dynasties in sport, because it makes it boring. And when the dynasty just goes on and on and on, it's one thing. All right, New England, the Patriots have been the best team in the NFL for the last, 15, 18 years, whatever it is. But they don't win the Super Bowl every year. They're not in the Super Bowl every year. Alabama's there every single year, every year in the playoffs. They have more talent than anybody. And Saban continues to recruit better than anyone. It makes it difficult for me to get involved in Alabama games because they're so much more talented than all the other teams. And frankly, I think it's boring for college football. I'm not a fan of the Alabama college football dynasty. That being said, Alabama's a favorite again this year, and they deserve to be the favorite. They have more talent than any other team in the country by far.
No, you're right. And they're the only team that's allowed to lose. I mean, they got beat late in the season by Auburn, and Auburn took it to them, and it still didn't matter that they still got in as well. Money time, play of the day. You know where we're going. Betting number 505, back to the Rockets, plus 8.5. Humiliated, blown out by 40. They've responded off the losses so far in the playoffs. They won 65 games. Their season's on the line. Iguodala's doubtful. Plus, the Warriors have been sloppy, and they haven't fared well after playing a great game like they did in Game 3. Add it all up, we'll take the 8.5. Don't have to win the game. Just have to keep it close. We'll take the 8.5 with the Rockets, although I still think Golden State will win the series in 5. But we'll see if that supporting cast steps up after everyone struggled in Game 3. Back tomorrow, back with the team previews in the NFL. Cincinnati Bengals will continue with the AFC North in Game 7. Capitals and Lightning, and also pivotal Game 5 between the Celtics and the Cavs. And we'll recap what happens tonight. We'll talk to you then on SportsBit, betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.